Welcome back to the Based on Actual Events podcast, a podcast where we talk all about movies, films, cinema, and TV. This is actually Ben, and I love movies. And I'd like to welcome a very special guest, producer for Skylight Films, Mark McNabb, who is our very first guest on the show. How you doing, Mark?
Great, Ben, and I appreciate the invite. And
Thank you for
congratulations too on the podcast. This is great.
thank you for coming on and being the first ever guest. And it's a big honor to have you here.
Well, appreciate it as well, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah. And Mark, you're working on something really cool, and I think it's very interesting. You're working currently on a documentary. Can you just talk a little bit about what that is for people that don't know? Because I've just been learning about this through meeting you. So can you talk a little bit more about it?
Absolutely, Ben. It was a happy accident project. I mean, it wasn't anything I sought out. I mean, my background has been in multiple genres, family adventure, romantic comedy, mystery, even a musical. So the chance for this just kind of came in a very different way. I was working with an executive
Mhm.
producer, would have been almost 6 years ago. And he just told me his story, just having lunch on set. And he just said, "Did I ever tell you when I had an experience with a UFO?" And I was like, "What?"
Whoa.
I said, "Yeah." I said, he goes, I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I was 12 years old." And I'm like, "What year was that?" He said, 1966. And I
Wow.
said, "Wow, incredible." And then he said, "Yeah, it was in Sarnia, Ontario," which kind of
Really?
stopped. Yeah. And it really stopped me, Ben, because I was like, I didn't know that my friend even came from Sarnia. I had known him for 4 years, and I didn't know he was raised in Sarnia. So he started to tell me this story about how he came out of like a Boy Scouts, what's that? The Boy Scouts club hall. And when he came out with his friends, they saw this object in the sky. And there's a lot to the story, but the long and short of it is, by the end of the experience, he was standing there alone. All of his friends had
Whoa.
disappeared. He doesn't even remember where they gone. They just kind of got bored and left. But this object was, 800 feet up, not
Yeah.
very far. He was making out a bit of detail. His mother came, and he was just desperate to get his mother out of the car to
Yeah.
see it, and she didn't get out in time. So she missed it. And he was really dejected by that, like really feeling like everyone's going to think I'm just a fake, I'm a fraud, that I didn't
Well,
see
yeah,
it,
for sure. Like you're
you
the only
know.
one that saw it.
Yeah, to know, who's going to actually believe me, and the next day, he came home from school, and his mother had a big smile on her face, came running up and said, "Look, it's in the paper." And multiple people had seen it. We're talking over 100 people on both sides of the water. If you know Sarnia, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah. There's states and then
exactly
Canada, so a bunch of people saw this.
a bunch of people had seen it, a bunch of witnesses had seen it. And so I was into that. I thought, that's a cool story. A lot of people have cool
Hmm.
unidentified object stories. So again, to keep it short, he decided a couple of weeks later to go onto the roof of his parents' one-story house, shimmy up the antenna with a little makeshift sky watching kit. He had a little compass, walkie-talkie, pad of paper, just
Yeah.
uh, something that a 12-year-old boy would
Yeah.
do
Kid
with
stuff.
kid stuff, right? But this resonated. I liked this. I liked this story. It felt very Spielbergian to me, like
Yeah.
a very Close Encounters kind of feel, or an ET kind of feel.
Very
And
true.
it was awesome. And he had a second experience where they were about to leave, and he literally said, "Ben," out loud, "I don't think we're going to see anything." And this flotilla of lights flew over the house. And it
That
wasn't meteors. It kind of they flew over, they stopped, they went back, like a video game.
that is
And yeah,
wild.
it was wild, man. And when he told me that story, I looked him right in the eyes and I said, "Do you think you willed that to happen?" I said, "Do you think you made that happen?" And he goes, I don't know." I said, "Did you want it to happen?" And he said, "Well, yes, I did." He goes, "I went up there in the hopes of seeing a UFO." So I got very fascinated by that, and I researched
Hmm.
that kind of thing. People creating intention, creating a connection of consciousness
Yeah.
to extraterrestrials and UFOs. And then I found out that there are actually pockets of people, groups all over the world that from Australia through Europe, Peru, especially throughout South America, people that practice these contact protocols. And I'd never heard of
Wow.
that in my life. I mean, we all know, Ben, about Close Encounters of the Third
Yeah.
Kind, right?
All the
Close Encounters of
movies.
the Third Kind,
Like all
one of the biggest movies of all time.
yeah.
But not a lot of people know what Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is because
Okay.
there's seven. There's actually seven of them.
Yeah, I saw on the website CE5. Is that kinda like
CE5.
the prob Yeah.
Yeah. So I got fascinated by that. And I ended up coming back to Rob about 6 months later. And I said, I think we could have some fun with this. I said, we could go to different hotspots in the world and maybe make contact ourselves. And I
Yeah.
said, you're going to pay for it. We laughed about that. You know, I mean, that was
Yeah.
still our inside joke. But yeah, we've been to 15 countries over the last 5 years doing just that and documenting all the experiences.
It's wild, and it's such an interesting story because it is, it's not fake, it's not fiction, it's not like the movies,
No,
like you were saying, ET or Close Encounters of the Third Time. This is real.
this is a
This is
very real.
actually happening, and it's
Yes, sir.
cool that you're showcasing this.
Yeah, and you know, we our catch line or tagline is, you know, the ordinary experiencing the extraordinary. That's
Yeah.
kind of so even the people that we talk to, most of the time I get asked the question, "Why are you even talking to me? I'm a nobody." Because they feel because they don't have a book to push or a movie to
Mhm.
push or something. I say, "No, and look, I'm not I'm interested in the every person's story." That's what
Yeah.
I that's what I wanna focus on as a filmmaker, as a producer. I don't wanna talk to the person who's just out there attending all the conferences and doing all the
Oh,
shows.
yeah.
I wanna talk to that farmer in the middle of nowhere who has an object appear in his field,
Mhm.
who writes us, and we get a lot of people writing us, telling us their stories, and
Yeah.
that's what keeps us going.
Yeah. Because these people, they may not have somebody that might believe them. You're becoming a conduit to tell their story.
It's a great
It's
word.
it's
Yeah,
great.
that's absolutely right, Ben. Conduit. You know, just the voice to the voiceless. What's what we often say. This is the voice that we're providing to the voiceless, the people that wouldn't get the chance to tell the story and express what they've seen, and sometimes show us pretty incredible video, you know,
Mhm.
of what they've experienced. And we're like, okay, it drives us forward.
Yeah. And you're currently working on making contact, from a Message from the Andes, right? How does how does that one have a different direction from some of the other ones? Talk a
Oh,
little about the Andes aspect. I kinda
no,
wanna know
that's
about
a
that.
great question, Ben. Great question. We had the opportunity to connect with Ricardo Gonzalez, who
Okay.
is very known throughout South America, originally from Lima, Peru, and he's a 25 plus year contactee. He's been contacted, he's had extraterrestrial contact throughout his whole life.
Okay.
And we connected with him, and he's of higher mind consciousness, raising your frequencies, that kind of thing. And we contacted him with an understanding that we really wanted to spend an extended stay in Peru, but we wanted to go where he wanted to go. They take us to the remote areas. If we have to get there by horseback, if we have to go to 14,000 feet,
Mhm.
go to the mountains of Markawasi. I mean, there's a beautiful mountain that we went on and camped on the top of a mountain that's 14,000 feet in altitude. We will push our bodies, minds, hearts, everything we need to push to make contact. So we were really fortunate, Ben, because Ricardo took us throughout Peru. He took us to Huascaran, he took us to Cusco,
Wow.
took us to all these different incredible, very ancient, you know, very culturally
Yeah.
invested places. Because and South America was exciting for us because North America, when you talk about UFOs, extraterrestrials, it's kind of Independence Day. I'm
Yeah.
trying to build in film references here, Ben. But you know,
Yeah,
you've
no,
got
all the Close Encounters, ET,
yeah,
Independence Day, all those films, but in South America, it's a deeper connection there.
it's a deeper connection, and it's an accepted phenomena, you know,
Mhm.
it's an accepted thing to talk to somebody on the beach in a very casual way while they're painting their house or cutting their lawn and to ask them, "Have you seen anything?" They don't hesitate. There is not any sense of, I don't want to be seen as crazy. I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about this because, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm an engineer,
Hmm.
all these different things. Will I look crazy? Well, not in South America. In South America, it's like, do you have an hour? Because I'd love to tell you what I saw just come out of the water last week.
That's
That's
amazing.
the kind of stories that we're getting. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think in Northern America, of all the pop culture movies with aliens, it's kind of a little bit washed, where everyone's just kind of like, "Oh, I see aliens," but they're on the TV, they're on the movies.
That's right. The
Where
media. It's a
yeah,
media
it's
representation, right?
yeah, and people are like, "If I see it, it's not real. It's I don't want to sound crazy." But in, like you said, in South America, it's a
It's
deeper
so
connection. There's
deeper.
hieroglyphs of like the that you can see, old hieroglyphs of like what could be possibly agent contact.
Oh,
It's
and when you couldn't be more right, Ben. And the Nazca lines, Machu Picchu, all these different places. You feel the energy. You have an understanding that this is ancient. This is early civilization too. We find that the early
Mhm.
civilization areas are the ones that, when you go into the catacombs, when you go into the caves, and you do that kind of thing, and you talk to people, and you see how they really focused on the stars,
Yeah.
constellations, as you're mentioning, hieroglyphs, petroglyphs, Nazca
Mhm.
lines. It's like a road map, an interstellar road map. Like you have to be 15,000 feet up
Yeah, to
to
see it.
look down and see it as a map. And it is. It's absolutely a map.
Yeah, and so documentaries, it's a lot different from doing fiction. I did a short documentary last September, and it's a lot different, and you kind of experience things that aren't scripted because it's not a scripted piece. What's Have you had any experiences, because you said you've been to 15 countries? Have you had any like wild experience, normal, or even because you are dealing with UFOs, have you had any
The one,
supernatural or anything? Because I saw on your Twitter you said your battery was
yeah,
mysteriously draining.
we've had so much of that. Probably one of the most, we call it our signature experience, our signature sighting, and ended up becoming one of the top 12 documented experiences with proof. I mean, we had video.
Wow.
It became one of the top 12 for that year. It's 2017. And it's kind of, this will be you're the first podcast that I'll be announcing this on.
Awesome.
We had this experience in 2017 in Squamish, British Columbia.
Okay.
And we went there to visit a fellow ufologist. We were excited. Long story short, we didn't end up going to where we thought we were going to skywatch. We wanted to go, we wanted to experience, and we ended up walking into a diner. We have a lot of this happen.
Mhm.
We call it high cool strangeness, where you walk in, you suddenly start talking to somebody, and somebody says something, and you go, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" So we literally asked her, "Do you have, just a girl behind the counter, have you ever had any sightings here or any experiences here?" And she said, "No, not here. But have you been up to to the Squamish Chief, the big mountain? Yeah, I
Okay.
heard, a lot of people have experiences up there." So we thought, okay, there was four of us. And we thought, well, we'll take that drive. So we drove up there, and then all four of us hit a spot where we looked around, we looked at each other, and we went, "This is the spot. We got to be here. This is where we need to be." So Rob set
Wow.
up all of his cameras, infrared, thermal, full spectrum, night
Wow.
vision. He's got quite a rig. It's a
Yeah.
whole tripod filled with different cameras. And we stayed there for 8 hours. And suddenly, just before 11 o'clock, this great big plasma orb of light opened up and just went in front of us, not even 600 to 800 feet away, not making a sound. So we didn't hear a plane, we didn't hear a drone, we didn't hear anything. And the biggest thing that
Just
it
floating there.
did, it was a mind blow. The biggest thing that it did was, when it went behind the trees, it lit them up,
Wow.
and it like brightly. And this became a sighting that still has people go. And we went back to debunk. I mean, we work very hard to debunk our sightings, and we went
Yeah.
back, to Could it have been the ISS, the International Space Station? All
Yeah.
these different things that you run all these tests, nothing. So we were like, okay. And then that sighting got put into a couple of documentaries, plus our documentary.
Wow.
So it was a pretty incredible experience.
That sounds incredible. And I also like how you say you try to debunk your own footage, because I think that makes it more authentic. Because if it's like we ourselves try to debunk it, nothing's coming up.
No, we we have a funny name for our cameras, Ben.
Yeah.
Rob called it the WMD, the weapon of mass detection,
That's
which we love. And
awesome.
then we changed it up and we went, well, it's the weapon of mass detection and the weapon of mass debunking,
Yeah.
because we have seen military flares come out of the back of a
Yeah.
plane. And if you don't know what a flare looks like, a military flare coming out of the back of a plane, you would think you were getting a visitation because it's all bright, it flares up, and
Oh,
it's incredible.
yeah.
But not when you're looking through a military grade night scope. And
No.
then it becomes,
Yeah.
oh, there's the plane flying away. So, we've been doing it for almost 6 years, but we've only had like 3 or 4 profound experiences. We've had a lot of strangeness, a lot of batteries going out, and things like that.
Weird.
But the weird, the
Yeah.
strange, the weird. But we've only had 3 or 4 where we can really say, yeah, this was something we don't know what it is. It's
Yeah.
unidentified.
So the cameras you guys use, I saw a little bit on your website. So do you have the tripod set up for the sky and that, but do you also have cameras filming Rob as well?
Yes, that's
Sort of.
my job, Ben. That's what
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
always doing that. I have my own night vision camera for like a 20-foot radius. I can film all of the participants. I can film
Mm-hmm.
Rob. I get the setup because what we do is factual documentary. So it's
Yes.
like you said, unscripted, organic. What happens happens, and we
Mm-hmm.
document the journey. It's not just a destination or making contact. We create an understanding for the viewer that it's a point of view. They have the same
Yes.
point of view that we do. You're with us when we're packing up and as disassembling, and anything that happens from the top of the day to the bottom of the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're they're a part of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that rig that you're saying, the tripod of all the info stuff, that looks really cool.
Yeah.
Um, Having that.
Yeah, it's added to every year. We always add something to that
I was
system.
lugging that around. I was lugging that around the Andes and stuff.
He's
Or
in great shape.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's in great shape. We're really lucky now. We've got a third partner moving forward. We've had
Okay.
different partners, different people that have been involved with the process, and bless all their hearts because every stage of what we've been doing has been an evolution. But Rob's got some great backup now. So because it
Mm-hmm.
is 60, probably 60, 70 pounds. It's
Wow.
got some real weight to it.
Yeah. And I want to ask you this question because I feel like this kind of relates to the production. I kind of want to see what your views on it, and maybe it will change. Maybe it's changing how you guys are working. But a couple months ago, there was the released footage of
Mhm.
the U.S. Navy released footage of
That's right.
UFOs, some unidentified flying objects.
That's correct.
How's that? Are you taking that in with maybe your documentary, or what do you think about those
Well,
videos?
we're working with different distributors and different
Mm-hmm.
production people, and what they got excited about that wasn't so much like, "Hey, this is all legitimate." It's been legitimate for a really long time.
Oh yeah, there's been sightings for
It's been sightings for
experiences for
decades and decades.
decades.
But there is a legitimacy when the government releases footage. I mean, you can't avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing that for us that kind of came from it is we are with the top experts in the world.
Yeah.
We are with Paola Harris, who's been a 40-year photojournalist around the world. She worked with J. Allen Hynek. She's worked with all the top people. And what it does is it creates a sense of, how do these people feel? You know what I mean? Like we've only been involved with it for 5 or 6 years, but what
Yeah.
about the person that's been a quarter century or more
Yeah.
that have been looked upon like fringe scientists? This is fringe science. This is a blend between mythology, religion, and science. You've got this blend. of things, and
Hmm.
what do we call it? What do we call UFOs and extraterrestrials? What do we
Yeah.
call, and but when something like this happens, it changes the dynamic. The
Hmm.
dynamic changes when you're out there doing an interview, or when you're with somebody. You can actually say, how do you feel about this? And as a documentary producer, that's an interesting dynamic to create, because now it's
Yeah.
no longer, you know, you proving to me, or you proving to anybody. It's like, no, this is in the mainstream now. This is a
Hmm.
really big part of our culture going forward.
Hmm.
So it's an exciting time when they release footage like that.
Yeah. Is there an interesting story from somebody that you've met in your journey about an experience, or what's the most profound story you've experienced?
Oh, let me think here, Ben. The most profound outside of ourselves, like something that we've.
Yeah, someone maybe you interviewed or you met, and you're like, wow, that's incredible. Because
I would
Rob's story was
say,
incredible.
yeah, no, no, I can do one for you that's kind of a
Yeah.
mix. It's a blend of something that someone experienced, two people experienced that we know personally, and definitely a catalyst for us to keep moving forward. It's documented online, so it's easy for me to talk
Yeah.
about it. Ricardo Gonzalez, to me, had probably the most profound set of experiences, because he had an experience with, and again, this is all through his words. I'm going
Yeah.
to do my best.
It's his story.
It's his story, and I'm going to pay as much respect as he deserves for me,
Absolutely.
paraphrasing and things
Yeah.
like that. But he had experiences in the Chilca Desert, over 25 years ago, with an extraterrestrial, who was named. That this extraterrestrial was 9 feet tall. Visited him in the Chilca Desert. Has visited him on 7 occasions in his lifetime. Um, and the extraterrestrial's name was, Antarel. There was two of them,
Okay.
Antarel and Avika. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, is this true? Is this false? Is this real? Is this not real?
Yeah.
Well, subsequently, Ricardo met another really good, respected friend of ours as well, Paola Harris, as I mentioned, a photojournalist,
Yeah.
who has been with a lot of experiencers, has multiple publications, books, magazines, and she has spent a lot of time with different experts herself in the field over the last 4 decades.
Hmm.
And she actually ended up joining Ricardo, at Mount Shasta, which is a pretty mythical mountain in San Francisco, California, just a couple hours out of San Francisco, California.
Okay.
And she also had an experience involving Aunt Terrell. And it's
Okay.
the thing for me is, I always look into a person's eyes when they're telling me a story, and I
Yeah.
say, what's your motivation? Do you have an agenda? Is there, you get the feeling, you get an understanding of it. And then sometimes you ask them the same story more than a few times to see if anything changes, or if there's any kind of
Yeah.
addition, right?
For sure.
Talking to both Ricardo and Paula and other people that had that experience, it's just there. You just know. You just look at them and go, well, no. I mean, they're not telling a reporter, they're telling me. They're telling, whoever they're telling. And we ourselves, after coming back from Peru to kind of tie it all together, we had our own experiences, not directly seeing Antarel like they had, or Ivica, but
Okay.
there were experiences that we had that created an impression of, again, being at Mount Shasta a month and a half after Peru, having equipment being affected, hearing voices that came up on the audio channel that
Wow.
couldn't be described, that the cameras were 200 feet away from the group, and yet a voice was heard in the audio track, and listening to the audio, you're pretty
That's
much assured that you're
yeah.
hearing Avika, like you're hearing the name Avika, like,
That's
pretty crazy.
yeah.
Pretty
Yeah. No.
awesome crazy.
Yeah. Good. It's awesome. Crazy, but
It's
wow.
awesome
It's
crazy, yeah, because so you feel that, yeah, you're being I don't know, guided. Like we call it like pieces to a puzzle. We're being
Mm-hmm.
guided, and wherever we end up, we feel we're supposed to be there for a reason.
Yeah, I find the topic just so interesting, like altogether, and really commend you for working on this and telling these people's stories. I
Yeah,
find it so interesting personally.
yeah,
Um,
we're having way too much fun, Ben.
yeah,
We're
I mean
having
that's a good thing. Have fun while you're doing it, and
oh,
something good comes out of it, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So, are you able to continue production currently with like everything that's happening in the world with sort of with COVID because we are in the midst right now of
We
COVID.
had
So,
yeah, we
how's
had
that
to
changed?
yeah, a lot of it changed for us. We were scheduled in March to go to Argentina and then come back from
Yeah.
Argentina and go to Bolivia and then come back and go to Ecuador. Like we had a very full summer slate of different
Mm-hmm.
places that we were going, producing new episodes and sequences and parts for a new documentary. So we had to
Mm-hmm.
get creative really fast and say,
Yeah.
okay, what do we want to do? But we are off to British Columbia next week, so
Well,
we're
that's
very
good.
excited for that. We're camping at
Yeah.
Powell River and going on the top of Sail Mountain by helicopter and
Wow.
doing all kinds of cool things. Because British Columbia is essentially COVID free. Like the areas we're
Yeah.
we haven't had any cases in over a month, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's safe.
um,
Being safe.
safe, safe. Yeah. So we chose to, being that we did our South American documentary, which we call "Making Contact: Messages from the Andes," and now we're doing kind of the North America or Canada,
Okay.
the Canadian version. We're spending time in British Columbia. We're spending time with a historian, a UFO historian, Grant Cameron, while we're in Manitoba. We're going to go to Manitoba at the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, yeah, there's going to be enough material for me to edit, do a lot of editing between now
Yeah.
and
Well,
Christmas.
making documentaries kind of get made in the editing room, putting it all together and everything.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I
Absolutely.
like how you have the you're having like the South American point of view of it, and now you're going with the North American sort
North
of point of
American.
view of
Yeah,
it. It's cool.
it's cool. It's going to be fun.
Hmm. So you've done documentary work, and you've also done a little bit of you've done fiction work, scripted pieces.
Yeah.
Um, what's in your words? What's the biggest difference between documentary to scripted pieces?
You
I
know,
always like to know that. Like,
yeah, no, no, it's a great question. You know, I'll reverse it in the sense that doing factual documentary is very organic.
hmm
It's very on the fly. You have a plan, but it's just it's not really a plan. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
know what you're there for. You have certain locations and people, but the rest of it is just, completely how you want to see, you just let it happen.
yeah.
It's just
What
very
you get is what you get.
you get what you get, and
Hmm.
you can't really force that side of it.
Yeah.
Where yeah, working on a feature like a TV movie or working on something like that that has a script. Sure, you can depart from the script and you can play and the actors can have a good time and try different things. I encourage that. I think that's a wonderful part of the process. Um, but you know the parts that you need to tell the story exactly how you're going to tell the story. You
Yeah.
can't deviate too much, or something that you do at the beginning won't match with something in the middle. Definitely won't help your ending, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that would probably be the biggest difference. Is just the dynamics of working on the fly versus a little bit tighter to
hmm
the chest. Yeah, definitely.
Documentary is always kind of changing over time. Things can change, things can move. Where in scripted, it's kind of well scripted. So
It's scripted.
not
That's
yeah,
right.
good
Absolutely.
word. Uh,
Absolutely.
and you're a producer. You also directed. And which do you prefer out of the two? And what's the
Oh,
difference between the two
I
as a
I think it
producer?
honestly, Ben, I think I just got older, and as I
Yeah.
got older, I'm gonna laugh at myself because I think I got lazier. I know. I mean, I hate to put it that way. It's not that I'm lazier, it's just my mindset's different. Like,
Okay.
when I was directing, I was yeah, I was younger, a little hungrier. It's not that I'm not as excited, I really love producing now.
Oh yeah.
And I guess by all intents and purposes, I am directing the documentaries as well. but it just kind of feels more like a blend, like more
Yeah,
of a
it's a
defined blend.
hybrid kind of.
It's a hybrid,
Yeah.
and but I've enjoyed working on as a co-producer, producer, even an executive producer on different short films with
Mhm.
really talented directors. Shout out to Aaron Huggett, like a
Yes.
really, really talented guy. He should be on your podcast.
I hope
Um,
I hope I hope to get him on, at some point.
and I'll
He's
even put
great.
the word I'll put the word out to him too because he's, multiple award winner, and it was just really awesome to see that kind of younger, that kind of energy and that kind of thing happening. Aaron was pretty cool. But one day he said,
Mhm.
"Well, you're kind of like the Godfather, Mark of how it all started in Lambton County and opening up
Yeah,
doors." And I take pride in that. I love seeing the young people take the torch and make films and tell their stories
for
and
sure.
make an impression on people. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's always good to have someone, from, I think, your town or from your area that you know is doing something that you like as well, and you know you're not the only one, you know?
Yes,
And I
yeah,
think that's what some people look at you and also Aaron as.
yes, absolutely. Like there's a lot of pride, when you can take a body of work and somebody looks at it or somebody just realizes I can do it too.
Yeah.
It becomes that. Like I was making films in the 80s. I started in the 80s, making, producing on Super VHS, if anybody can remember that who listens to your
Yeah.
podcast. But, but
Hopefully somebody.
somebody, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's go, right?
I know what it is.
You know what it is. There we go, Ben. And I worked in all the different formats. I worked in all of them. I worked in DV Cam, Super VHS. I worked in Super 16 millimeter, 1635 millimeter. That to me was a gift. I was
Mhm.
gifted with being able to work with different crews out of Toronto through the 90s, through the early 2000s, to learn different formats, learn the intricacies of high definition. I mean, we shot one of the first fully produced and distributed and broadcasted high definition movies in Canada. And we were
Wow.
really proud of that. That's 19 years ago. But
What was the title of the movie?
that was Love Wine.
Wow,
Now,
okay.
it's funny now. You look at high definition now, every phone has it.
Mhm.
You,
Yeah.
every phone has 4K. But back in 2000, 2001, to rent a high definition camera was like $12,000.
It was so new. It
It
was
was
ev
incredibly new. When you wanted to edit non-linearly, which is so standard now, you can go out and buy a great computer for, $2,000.
yeah.
Well, to get 1 terabyte, actually it wasn't even a terabyte, to get an 800 gigabyte hard drive in 2005, $3,000 to buy it.
Whoa.
And
Yeah.
it was a big black box, Ben.
Yeah.
It
It wasn't small.
wasn't small. It was like the size of a small table. And I remember buying that. I remember coming to the executive producers on a movie and saying, "I need this 800 gigabyte. 800 gig. What do you need 800 gigabytes for?" And
Yeah.
now you can buy a terabyte for 79.99.
Yeah.
So to see that evolution is probably what I'm the most thankful for because I'm
Mhm.
often asked, "Would you change anything?" And I say, "No, I wouldn't
Yeah.
change a thing." I love the experience of learning about technology, evolving, working with the talented people that I worked with, and yeah, blessed,
Yeah.
just a blessed opportunity.
Yeah. Film, I feel like is one of the art forms that has evolved so quickly. Like
Absolutely
it's evolving so fast every year. Even from 2000 to 2020. It's a huge leap, like you were
massive.
saying.
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest leaps. I remember producing Love Wine, and I remember getting it on television. We, sold it to HDNet Movies, and and this was a thing that happened. But oh, it was next to impossible to produce
Yeah.
there. Because it was you were up, and then we had to go into a really big editing suite in Toronto to get it edited, and it was
Mhm.
months and months and months to get edited because it was so costly. I mean, it put me straight into debt. but but the experience was amazing, and you just learn so much
Yeah.
that you got to weigh it all out.
hmm I just want to bring it back because we were talking a little bit about Aaron Huggett, and just want
Yes,
to mention I was on the Black Donnelly set for a day.
fantastic.
I was there, and I was doing something for Kojiko, or Your TV now, and I was filming there, so I got to meet Aaron and all the actors, and it was an amazing experience
Oh, that's it. The
being
most
there.
talented group. Yeah, they are so talented, top to bottom.
hmm
They're friends. They've got that energy. They are family. That to me is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it was amazing being there. Um, So you, like I was saying before, you produced and you directed. For people who don't, I feel like everyone knows what a director does, or at least they have an idea of what a director does. What does a producer do? For people that may not know what a producer does, because you've done a lot of producing.
Yeah, from the
Also.
producing side of it, it's always kind of keeping um, your mind's eye open to concepts. Like if you're talking to somebody or reading a book or a magazine article, or you just get an impression that this would be a good project, like
hmm
and running with it. So a producer does a lot of that. Producer keeps their ear to the ground. They're always aware of different things. What could be something producible, that could have a good audience,
Yeah.
and and then doing the research, following up, researching it, finding out more about it, getting really educated and schooled up on what will make that a great project. And then, of course, the next stage is financing. I mean,
hmm
you go that route first, unless you're in a position to self-produce, which I've done many times. But there's also been half of the projects I've done have been financed, through
Yeah.
an executive producer, someone that I've worked with before that also is keen on the subject, thinks it'll be fun, thinks it could be profitable, whatever their motivation may be. And you work with that executive producer and you finance the project to the point of being able to attract a director, attract a camera operator, director of
Yep.
photography, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you crew up. You just basically start to crew up and you
hmm
start to cast it. So the producer just literally gets it through development. Now, sometimes a producer and a director will work in tandem. The director will come
Yeah.
to a producer, and it could be a director writer that comes to a producer and says, I have an idea. I have something I'm really excited about. Can I show you my development of this project or
Okay.
concept? And then the producer makes that decision. So it can happen two ways, Ben. You can either self-start as a producer
Okay.
and create a project, or a writer will bring you a concept or a story or a script and say, "What do you think?" Or a director will come to you and say, "A writer just brought me this really great script, and I'd like you to read it and tell me what your thoughts on it are. And if you think this is something that you might want to produce, or maybe someone else would like to produce." And then, of
Yeah.
course, the final stage for a producer is the producer's just present in some capacity, whether it's through consultation or being on set or being involved with the editing process or all three. The producer basically supervises the whole process to make sure that
hmm
the end, the end story, the film
Yeah.
itself
It's going
has
smooth.
going
It's
smooth.
happening.
And, it's happening, and then it goes out the door, gets into the hands of the distributor, so yeah, kind of like a kind of like a parent, I guess, in some kind of way, from conception to completion. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what a producer's in charge of.
No, thank you for explaining that, because I feel like a lot of people see movies or see movie trailers where it's like directed by this person, but produced by J.J. Abrams or something. And
Right.
people are always like, oh, it's produced by J.J. Abrams, but they don't exactly know what producing means. They're just like, oh, it's a tag on for director. So it's great that you explained it
Yeah,
for people that may not know.
no problem, man, no problem at all.
Yeah. And as you're explaining, the producer brings it out to the distributor. And I saw that Skylight Films has a lot of distribution with big names, Artist View and Lionsgate. How did you get those big connection names? That's amazing.
Yeah, again, so many happy accidents, Ben.
Yeah.
Um, It's a lot. There's a lot of diligence involved. Like when you're producing independently, and big shout out to Petroleum Ontario. Like when
Yes.
you're producing in a small town, you have a lot of the benefits of working with your friends and family, local resources. People get excited. It's a new industry, right? And when you're a small fish, in a big pond versus a big fish in a small pond,
Mm-hmm.
you can get different things done in a certain kind of way. And so what ended up happening for me might not happen for the next person. It's not
Yeah.
it all depends on your work, the work you
Who
put
you
into
meet,
it.
the
It's
work.
all, yeah, and being committed to it and
Yes.
understanding that there's going to be some levels of success and then there's going to be some levels of failure. For me, my route was after finishing the film, I would put DVDs in my briefcase, and yes, it was like a really, really classic old
Old.
style, very old style briefcase, and the combination lock was 007. So
Perfect.
I had to do that. So
Yes.
I took that and I went to the American film market in Santa Monica, California. And I did
Wow.
that every year for, 4, 5, 6 years. And
Wow.
a lot of rejections. I mean, rejection, 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 rejection. And
Yeah.
sometimes you'd get a bite, but I don't look at them as rejections as in the classic sense of rejection. I looked at it as a learning curve. You know,
Yeah.
what am I learning from pitch to pitch to pitch? I'm pitching this person, pitching this distributor, running into this person in the lobby, and you walk the hallways. I mean, the proverbial hallway of trying to sell yourself and sell your movie and sell your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And with Artist View, it was just a kinship. Like I kept bringing him my product, and he was like, "Not sure, not sure, not sure." And but then he saw a couple of them that I did. It was just impressed with that. I kept coming back every year. He'd be
Well,
like, "Wow, you're back."
dedication.
Yeah, you stick with it. And then he finally said to me, and it was kind of a turning point for me. It would have been 15 years ago. Was when he said to me, "The only thing you're lacking is a name." He said, "Your shoot, it's got some good, strong production value. You've got good storytelling. You've got all these different things." But he goes, "To make it truly marketable, we need to get some names." And he said it like that. We need to get some names in your next one.
Okay.
Like, okay, cool. That's a win. So I wrote a script. Long story short, I made a film in 2005 called Blind Eye, and I got to have two name actors in it, Nick Mancuso and Roddy Piper. And because
Wow.
they were Canadian, I ended up
Yes.
making 3 films with Roddy. It was a lot of fun. And it just opened up the market. Suddenly we had a film that was playing in 25 countries, and doing those kind of things. Uh, We're gonna
Yeah.
have the Farmer Brown talk now, Ben. I'm gonna tell you the Farmer
Are you
Brown.
gonna we're gonna talk
Yeah,
about Farm Around?
yeah, I gotta give you this one now because it segues into the Lionsgate for
Wait,
you.
hold on. I just want to say before we talk about Farmers Brown, I just want to let people know that Mark filmed Farmer Brown in the high school that I eventually ended
Yeah,
up going to.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. A lot of that was 2003, so it's a very long time ago,
yeah.
and we laugh about it because it was really a pet project. Like it was just really for fun, and
Hmm.
we joke that we shot it for the cost of DV tapes and pizza because that's kind of what it was. We were all just having a great time, and there were a lot of up and coming actors that just wanted to have an opportunity to get on
Yeah.
camera. Would always have excellent premieres, and they would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We ended up, I put considerable money into again going to the film market and promoting it. I don't know. I wanted to try to do that. I wanted to go the extra mile with it because it seemed to have a little bit of a Blair Witch kind of feel to it at the time Blair
Yeah.
Witch was out. It looked kind of like a not lost footage style, but it had a kind of a rougher edge to it.
It did have a rough edge quality to it.
Looking at the house, and we would have people say that that's a really creepy Texas Chainsaw Massacre style
It
house.
is exactly what I thought when I saw it. I
You know,
watched it.
and so we ran with that. And again, it was a lot of years, like a lot of money and a lot of years going back. It took 2 or 3 years to have anybody
Mm-hmm.
interest in it. And then finally, again, happy accident. I met a guy who, wasn't going to pay the bill for that I had incurred, but he said, "I think I can get this to somebody else that might be able to do some business with it. Do you want me to try?" And I said, "Sure." And of course, I did not know at the time that that other person was Lionsgate, and I had
Yeah.
no idea that it would go in that direction. And then Lionsgate morphed it into Dark Fields and spent
Yeah.
ridiculous money on a poster. Like they spent 20 times, what I'd ever expect to be spent on a poster.
Yeah.
And they just, yeah, they went the distance. They went the distance with it. But for us, it became a calling card. Even though it didn't commercially do much for us, it was the bragging right. It was
Yeah.
being able to say, "Yep, this film got picked up by Lionsgate." And then, of course, we made another movie called Study Hell the following year. And again, that helped open up the door with the guy that ended up financing Blind Eye. That, was a part of the financing structure for Blind Eye. So it's always one, anybody out there that's listening, to you, Ben, and your podcast and
Yeah.
everything, you just got to understand that everything that you do, you'll not only learn from, but most likely it'll open up some kind of door.
Yeah. I think that's perfect. Perfectly said. So I think we're almost coming up to time, but before we go, I just want to ask a very important question, which is what's your favorite kind of movies right now you're watching?
What do I watch? I
Yeah.
watch a lot. It's a guilty pleasure for me, but I had the tendency to get on Amazon Prime and go back to the 80s. I don't know why I do
Perfect.
that, but I do because one of my favorite films of all time, when I ever asked what my top three favorite films are, one of my favorite films, and I was reminded of it not even a week ago, was Witness with Harrison Ford. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed Witness. I really enjoyed the fish out of water aspects. I really enjoyed the story, the intrigue, the never knowing what's going to happen. I thought it was great storytelling, and a lot of people don't know that it's the only film that Harrison Ford was ever nominated for an Oscar as Best Actor.
Yeah.
And when I watched that film, so that's my guilty pleasure. I mean, I go back. I enjoy all genres. It doesn't matter. I enjoy a great superhero film. Because I love
Hmm.
heroes and villains, and I love that kind of dynamic between good guys and bad guys. But I often go back to the mid '80s and relive it.
That's perfect. So yeah, we're just about coming up to time, and I just want to thank you, Mark, for coming on and being the
Thank you.
first guest.
Oh, it's such an honor, such a privilege. I
Yeah,
appreciate you listening to all my stories.
I love them. For people who are listening, where can they find you? You're on Twitter, website.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing, especially if you want to learn more about making contact, which I hope everyone does. Uh,
Hmm.
Rob Freeman, UFO World Explorer, is our YouTube.
Okay.
Um, Rob Freeman, UFO World Explorer on Twitter, on Instagram. That's where we are, and of course on LinkedIn. I mean, that's as
Yeah.
far as myself goes. But project wise, yeah, hope everyone visits our
Yeah.
our social media.
Yeah. If you're listening on YouTube, I'll put the links in the description below for if you want to look more into making contact and Mark stuff.
Appreciate that, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so much.
You're
And
very, very welcome.
thank you, everybody, for listening. And tune in next time.